Welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast on the Prepper Broadcasting Network. We talk prepping, guns, and politics every week on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Go check out our content at mwfpodcast.com on Facebook or Instagram. You can support us via Patreon or by checking out our affiliate partners. I'm your host, Phil Rabalais, and my co-host, Andrew Bobo, is on the other side of the mic, and here's your show. So welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast. Let's get some administrative work out of the way. For those of you who are watching this on stream, this is pre-recorded. It's not live, so if you're welcome to leave us a comment, but it's not that we're being jerks and ignoring you. We're not here right now when you're watching this. And if, on the other hand, you are listening to this in audio podcast, then you're probably wondering what the hell I'm talking about because you don't listen to it anyway. It's always pre-recorded. But you should consider jumping on our YouTube channel or our Rumble channel. The links are in the show description. And you can watch the two of us talk about this if you care enough to. So there was all that. But I have to thank the patrons for supporting the show. Y'all make sure that this show does not eat a substantial portion of my whiskey and cigar budget, which would be crippling to me emotionally and physically. Y'all support the show. Y'all let us have some fun. And for that, we're eternally grateful. Merch store is online at the Southern Gals. Links in the show description. And I promised our merch provider I'd be better about wearing the shirts. I'm actually wearing the Apocalyptic Warlord shirt.
Hold on.
Today. Nope, now Andrew has to run off and go grab one.
I still need to send you my address so you can send me one of those.
I think I have your address. You just need to tell me which shirt size is and which one or two you want.
That is an excellent question. I will have to consult my wife for the shirt size.
But yeah, the merch is up on the store. It's fun and it's cheeky, and it's things like, which apocalyptic warlord do you want to be? Do you want to be a benevolent one, or do you want to be like Lord Humongous, the Ayatollah of rock and roll? And then we have shirts like Feral but Free with the Tactical Raccoon.
It's right. There's that. I don't know if you guys can see the back.
You're too tall. There you go.
There you go.
Fantastic.
The Feral but Free. And then we have another one that's another Tactical Raccoon that I'll wear on the next time we record.
I choose Violence. It's definitely a vibe.
Mm-hmm. It's a great one.
So
Andrew, since the Tactical Raccoon was kind of your idea, how did that come up in the first place?
When we were talking about merch, we were brainstorming with Gillian, and she was we were coming up with stuff about we were coming up with stuff because I remember you and I were talking about, like, we had a bunch of ideas, like, what was it, like the tactical clam and like all kinds of different ideas of like different like things that just with nods and guns and rifles and vests, like what would look funny. And the Raising Values podcast has a shirt with a possum that I believe that's the one that says "I'm always a delight." I think it is.
First of all, I'm a delight.
Yeah, first of all, I'm a delight. So we're talking about that, and you mentioned something about, hey, let's do a possum. And I was like, well, possum. I'm like, I really don't want to like do it with that, or I don't want to like take away from Raising Values or anything. Or what she did. So I don't know, like I just like the raccoon just popped in my head. I'm like, dude, raccoons are freaking cool. Like trash pandas are amazing. First off, and just the ability that like just their skills in general about like, how they can figure stuff out and how smart they are. And then like what is it? Not is it Ratchet from Galaxy, like that popped up.
Oh, Rocket Raccoon.
Ratchet's
the game character.
Yeah, Ratchet's the game character. Yeah, Rocket. And so I'm like, man, I'm like, that would be like a cool freaking thing that like a cool, like, I don't know. So I don't know. I went into Photoshop, and Photoshop has really cool AI. And I just was like, I just typed in like Tactical Raccoon, and then like it spit out a bunch of stuff, and I go, Tactical Raccoon wearing plate carrier, nods, rifle. Like actually, I can't say rifle. Photoshop would not allow me to put rifle in. So I put I just put a bunch of different things, and it popped out and it spit out a crap ton of images, and I saved a bunch of them. and so yeah, so that's where these came from. And then I think it was this one. There's one of them that if you look really close on the plate carrier, I tried to get back with my Photoshop roots and basically Photoshop the MOF logo onto the plate carrier to make it kind of grunge it up a little bit, make it look like it was like part of it. So if you look really close, that's kind of in there. But no, it's AI. I have one of my really good friends. His name's Chris. He's really big into AI. Utilizes AI at his job and all kinds of stuff. I mean, he's got a couple certs in AI and stuff like that. And so me and him have been really talking about how to utilize it better day to day. And yeah, I like for disaster coffee, for the raisin values, I was kind of pumping stuff in. For this, I will every once in a while, like I'll put something in, like I'll put different parameters in and stuff. But yeah, so it's really interesting what the AI art will spit out. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, that's where the tactical raccoon came from.
Nice.
I still want to get something with I still want to do one with. I can't get it to spit out the right image for a bump helmet and nods. It doesn't. I did do like tactical raccoon wearing night vision, all kinds of stuff, and like it spit out some gnarly freaking stuff. Like it was weird. So I might have to do some Photoshop work and maybe take a picture like my bump helmet and nods and stuff like that and see what I can't Photoshop. But
Or you could always like capture a neighborhood raccoon and train it to wear a bump helmet and nods.
I mean,
sure.
Bribe it with food, that might work.
They're not hard to bribe.
They're not. I just don't want my face scratched off.
That's what the cage is for.
Oh, Jesus. That is the beginning of a whole set of really bad ideas. So, the topic of the show today is prepping for comfort, which I'm struggling to remember how this came up, who threw this into our lab. But, like, it's something that, like, we have discussed along with the patrons quite a few times, because, like, usually when people first get into this, the idea of preparedness, you know, they're focused on minimums. It's beans and rice, and it's like, what's the bare minimum? Because I have to get there as fast as possible. And then once they get there, there's really kind of two avenues. One is I need to do these things in a greater amount, so I'm prepared for a longer period of time, but still at that bare minimum sustainment kind of quality of life. Or they start branching out into, well, I've got these things, but these things would be cool to have too. And then they start looking sideways at, I can hold out for, say, 3 months, arbitrary number. But I don't just want to barely survive for 3 months. I want to be comfortable. I want to have things that I want. I don't want to have to go through the apocalypse without coffee and cigars, because that would suck twice as bad. You know, it's that idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that would make an interesting topic to unpack and kind of talk about, like, you know, like what's feasible, what's not, what's our personal go-to prep for comfort. I mean, now I will personally have to give a lot of credit to my wife for this, because when I first started prepping, it was pretty much just on me. And then when she came into this world too, that's when she was like, I love you dearly, but you're a dummy because you forgot this, 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 and this. And I was like, oh, that's why my wife's smarter than I am in many ways.
It's good to have them around. They definitely make you think of things just a little bit different, but that difference can be massive. I mean, just, you know, yeah, your background as a soldier. Comfort, not really a thing when you're doing soldier things, right? So, of course, naturally, your mind went to sustainability and survivability first. Makes a lot of sense. You know,
well, and I think my mind and a lot of people's mind, because, like, you know, call it what it is. There's a big Venn diagram in preparedness where there's like preppers and then there's military and first responders.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about a large group of people who are very used to austere environments and doing without, right. And like people who, when there's an emergency, whether it's a flood or a tornado or a hurricane or a blizzard, they just know things are going to suck for a while, and there's no way not to make them suck, so you might as well just, you know, to borrow the old military phrase, embrace the suck. But then when you start bringing civilians into this world, which preparedness has become more and more mainstream over the years, and a lot of us have spouses and kids, and they don't appreciate austerity the way some of us do. Then they start saying, but does it have to suck quite this bad? And I feel like that's kind of where we wound up.
That's the difference in people between type 1 and type 2 fun. If you're familiar with
I am
Jocko
not.
Willink's podcast, type 1 fun are things that are fun to do while you're doing them. Type 2 fun are things that are fun to look back on, but that suck while you do them.
Most of my military experience.
Yeah, type 2 fun. Yeah.
All right. So how do we conduct this? I mean, y'all just want to kind of go round and round, toss something in the hat, talk about it, or
Sure.
I mean, or we can just talk about what we've done over the years to make. I mean, prepping for comfort, if you think about it, it falls in the same aspect of just camping. I mean,
It can, yeah.
buying stuff to make your camping experience a little bit comfortable. So, like what have you guys got? What have you guys bought recently, or what have you upgraded to, or what things have you changed to make your camping life, which then can translate to the prepping side of stuff. Like, what did you guys change or upgrade, like I said, to or buy to make that life easier or more comfortable?
well, I mean, I can tell you that camping wise, I mean, like over the last 2 years, we got the Jackery, we made the jump to a 12-volt fridge, and for anybody that's in the camping world or in the preparedness world, a 12-volt refrigerator, God, it opens up so many freaking doors. I like it. It turns camping out of the back of a truck into truly more glamorous than you feel like you deserve. Because you're not fishing your food out of a bucket of pink water. You're not constantly worried about ice. You just open the lid and shut the lid and get your food out when you want it. And it makes things so much nicer. But more recently, up to this time, like my wife and I and my daughter, we've always slept on sleeping bags, on sleeping mats, on the floor. And that was okay for me. It's become less okay as I've crested 41 and I'm heading towards 42, to be honest. But my wife was the one that really put her foot down and said, hey, babe, like, we're not getting good sleep laying on the floor. So she was the one that pushed us towards eventually getting cots. And we sized those cots perfectly in our 6-man tent so that we can put one up against, each one of the 3 walls that doesn't have the door we're using. And we have a big open area in the middle of the tent for, so you can stand to get dressed. And those cots have changed the calculus as far as where we can set up the tent, how much ground prep we have to do, because we don't have to make sure we have every little rock and every little stick out of the way. We use a double floor covering. So we use a tarp that's quartered on the ground and then a ground cover and then the tent. So even if there's something on the floor, it's not going to punch a hole in the floor. But making the move to cots has definitely improved the quality of sleep. And I cannot tell you that when you're sleeping in the middle of the woods without air conditioning, anything you can do to make you get better sleep is a blessing. And the thing of it is that like our normal emergency situation is usually like hurricanes. So in that situation, we're usually bugged in. We have beds we can sleep in. But as we learned during Hurricane Ida, I don't know if anybody's aware of this, but those beds, those mattresses, they hold a lot of body heat. So if you have like one little window unit struggling to cool down the house, or if you don't have air conditioning, having a cot that will not trap your body heat and will allow some breathability around you, like that can be a huge help in keeping cool, keeping comfortable.
What's a serious upgrade to that even? Take a little box fan and blow that under all 3 of the cots. Even on a low setting, it'll cool you down.
So interestingly enough, that same camping trip, or the camping trip before we got the cots, we got a small, I want to say it's like a 9 or a 10-inch little battery-powered box fan with an LED light on it. And
nice.
that has now become our ceiling fan. So when we're in the tent, we throw that up in the top of the gear loft, and you can either blow air down or you can pull air up towards the vent. But
Nice.
that's our air circulation. And I did the power calculations on it. On medium air, it will run for 8.5 hours.
Oh, that's not bad.
So, yeah. So, I mean, like when we're in the tent, and the other thing it does is it's just white noise. Like for any fan
Sure.
sleepers out there, that's me and my wife. Like I can get to sleep listening to bugs chirping and it's fine, but my wife really needs the white noise of a fan. So with that thing, I just, click it on to leave the light on while we're getting ready and everything at night. Turn the light off, click the fan on medium, and when the fan runs out in the morning, it's time to wake up anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other thing too is how you can translate this into like the preparedness stuff is if you guys have to bug out for whatever reason, the hurricane or something, if you guys got to leave the area, you better I'd throw the cots into the truck, because
Yep.
if you go to a hotel and it's first come first serve, and if you get a hotel where you have one bed, it's okay. I'm not going to make my kid, my wife, or myself sleep on the floor. I don't really want to do that. And when there's a bunch of other families around, I know the hotels usually have cots, but they don't have hundreds of them. So having your own cot to where you can throw it into the room and either get one of the other people, somebody up off the floor, then that says a lot too. That helps.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the big changes we made when we moved out to this house, in fact, well, two big changes. One, we gained a natural fireplace, a full mason's fireplace. So there is, off to my right here, there's a big brick column that goes all the way up out of our house. This is a fireplace. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, that has what's called heatilators. I'd never heard of it either. Essentially what it is there's two vents on the left, on either side of the chimney. There's two on the floor, two about halfway up to the ceiling. And that brick, once it all heats up, it starts naturally drawing air in through the bottom vents, bringing it up along the heated flue and out into the room. Now it will keep my entire house. Now, this was obviously not the coldest day, but we had that ice storm last year that knocked out power for about 4 days. We were able to keep our house at 74 degrees when it was 25 and windy outside with just that fireplace. Now, we also have a generator, and the generator panel is right over there. That was another big upgrade that we did that allows us to have hot showers, water from our well, and if we want to, we can have the boiler running. That's also in this room here. It's a big 220 10,000 K generator, so it eats a lot of fuel, but it's one of the dual fuel ones, and I'm looking at there's an upgrade that you can put on it that'll make it a tri-fuel, but I'll have to get a bigger gas meter put on the outside of the house for that. So that's a little bit down the line. But what it allows me to do is I built a little trailer. In fact, I should probably write up a little article on that trailer I built once I get the charger bank put on it. Generators mounted on the trailer. There's two 40-pound propane cylinders on it. That's enough to run our house basically an hour every 4 hours for like 3 weeks off those two cylinders. It's not bad, So you can just hook it up to the lawnmower, because I had to pull that generator through a couple inches of snow. That sucked. It's only a few hundred yards from my garage to our hookup, but still icy, slushy snow. It'd be a lot easier with the tractor. So
Yeah.
So that was a couple of big upgrades we made.
Well, you also got to think too is if you have your fireplace that does that, how much of a load not running the furnace that takes off of your generator?
It's 60%. 60% of our total household load would come from that boiler. So the generator now running the well, the fridge, the furnace, lights, Wi-Fi, all that runs at about just over idle, about 15 to 20% load.
Right. That's what I'm saying is, so you not having to worry about the furnace or the boiler, that right there makes it so that you can take hot showers, because a hot water, I mean, depending on if it's electric or gas and stuff.
It's a gas. It's a gas. So the only thing you're doing for the hot water heater is turning on and off the electronic valve for the gas in it.
Yeah. So, I mean, but what I'm saying is basically you having the load off of the boiler and stuff like that allows you to actually run more things and actually be more efficient when it
It
comes
does.
to things for
It
the
cuts
house.
our fuel consumption by, like I said, about 60%.
Yeah. So no, that's good.
Yeah, it's pretty big. One of the really key things we were looking for when we moved out here, and this is a little bit prepping for comfort too, was we were buying a ranch house instead of a 2-story. It's a bit of a luxury around here. Most of the houses built around here are 2-story houses. They cost a bit more money per square foot to have a ranch house because, for one, there's more roof. But we've been watching our grandparents kind of age lately. My grandparents are mostly in their 80s. My wife's grandparents are a little bit younger than that, but not much. And stairs are getting to be a problem for them. My grandfather was recently hospitalized and because of a fall. He's doing fantastic, so no worries about that. He'll be back home next week, I think, or mid next week. But we wanted to have a house that, if this was our forever house, for whatever reason, couldn't move, didn't want to move, whatever, we could age here, well into our 80s, because getting into the house is 2 short steps. That would be very easy to throw a ramp on. Just about everything we need is on 1 floor except for the laundry, but that'd be easy to relocate. The house has got a spare bedroom, so we can put a spare bedroom actually functionally above my head. Put the laundry room in the spare bedroom above my head, I should say. And without having to do major renovation work or move again to a smaller house, we could care for this place long term, even if one of us were to become injured or, infirm in some way. Which, is that a little bit prepping? To me, it is. Because I'm going to probably get old barring getting hit by a bus or, some kind of heart attack or something.
So I can tell you from experience, it's going to happen to you whether you wanted to or not.
Right. Yeah. I'm 34, and before I lost a bunch of weight, my knees hurt walking upstairs. So, I could see it coming down the road, and I wanted to not be forced into it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, unfortunately, my wife and I are. I mean, we could stay in this house if if somebody put a gun to our head, but we just don't want to, because like you and I were talking about before the show rolled, like, we're in the suburbs and we desperately want to be further out in the country, and this house is like there's no functional reason why my wife and I, and even my daughter, if she chose to stay with us, for a couple years, get herself established, couldn't fit into this house.
Oh, for sure.
But the problem really is, it's not what we want. Like, Gillian and I have some long-term plans to kind of have a house built from the ground up to our specs that would be potentially a home that we'd never retreat from. Like, if there'd be a hurricane, bring it, kind of situation. But this ain't it. First of all, it's in the middle of a Tri-City area.
That's hard.
But I digress. I was talking earlier about one of those "hey dummy" moments my wife dropped on me. So when she first got into, not long after she got into the preparedness mindset, and the subtitle under my name says "The Baker," and this is pertinent. So I do bake. I learned to bake and I learned to cook from my mother when I was very young, and it's something that I've kind of passed along to my daughter, taught her how to bake. And my wife pointed out to me, she was like, "Hey, babe, if all hell breaks loose, you and I both know that me and your daughter are going to want some morale boosters at some point, so you probably should put aside some baking supplies." Now, this is bearing in mind that, like, I already have in the go-to pantry, in the kitchen, flour and sugar and chocolate chips, and in the other pantry is like baking powder. I've already got all the stuff I need to whoop up cookies or fudge or brownies or whatever, pretty much spur of the moment. I mean, if I don't have what I need to make what you want, I can probably make something pretty close to it, just because that's the way we keep the kitchen stocked. But then I went behind myself and put aside an entire 5-gallon bucket of nothing but baking supplies. Nothing but baking supplies.
Nice.
Because, again, it's one of those situations where it's like, in a 2 or 3 day we can't go to the grocery store kind of thing. we can tough it out for 2 or 3 days.
Oh yeah.
But my wife was right. Like sooner or later, the beans and the rice are going to get old, and somebody's going to want a morale booster. And that's when you have dad who can bake, who just needs the tools of his trade. And then on my side of things, I started making a much more concerted effort to bulk up on things like whiskey and cigars and coffee. I mean, I've got 15 pounds of green beans sitting back there on the shelf, and I need to order more because I have to fill up another 5 gallon bucket full of it. But the point is, like, it just goes back to this idea that, okay, we've got enough red beans and rice. We're not going to starve for a very long time. And while I can
But you
quite
might kill each
comfortably,
other.
well, I could quite comfortably eat red beans and rice almost forever. I mean, well past the rapture if I end up not getting my ticket out of here on that train. But yeah, my wife might kill me in my sleep if I try to feed her red beans and rice consistently for too long. My daughter would get, I don't know. My daughter's wired like I am. She'd get a little grouchy eventually, but I think my wife would be the one that does me in first.
Lack of tacos.
Yeah. But that's another thing. Oh, you know what? We actually don't we don't have, I was about to say we don't have tortillas on hand, but we can make tortillas. Those aren't hard.
You can make tortillas, but what about bulk seasonings?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's one thing that my wife brought up to me when I started putting back larger quantities of food was having more than just the spice rack in the cabinet kind of going on. Yeah. Because
Well,
I cook a lot at home.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you think of it like this, like if you look at the proportion of things in most recipes, you're talking about teaspoons or tablespoons of baking powder and seasonings and sugar to cups of flour. So you can kind of get an idea just looking at a recipe book, like what your proportions are. Like if you have a big old huge, like 10-pound bag of flour, you probably need a small extra can of baking powder or something to just keep things balanced out. But I mean, it all comes back to the idea that like we don't want to have to eat beans and rice every day in the apocalypse if we can help it.
I mean, if you guys have a Sam's Club around you, I've just pulled one at random here. Taco seasoning, 23 ounces of taco seasoning for $7. Granted, that's probably a ton of sodium, and you could probably make it better for you for less. But you're going to go through, I don't know, a tablespoon, maybe 2 or 3 to a pound of meat. So you can get quite far for a few bucks. Even if you don't figure it for like each individual meal, just picking up your generic garlic salt, garlic powder, onion powder, stuff like that. Like, Andrew, what do you normally cook around your house? I know you fed me pretty much exclusively meat while we were there, which was fantastic, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, I swear by the Traeger. Like, I don't have a Traeger, but I swear by the rubs that they have. So like their Saskatchewan rub, which is like black pepper, garlic. I don't even know what's all in it, but it's freaking amazing. It goes great on everything.
Looked like a pretty coarse sea salt in there too.
Yeah, yeah, but it goes like I have yet to find something that doesn't taste good with that. I put it on fish. I put it on fish. I put it on chicken. I put it on turkey. Everything. I literally put on everything. So I have that, and I actually need to buy a few more because I like to have one in my pantry, one in my truck, and then one on steer. And so I actually took the one out of my truck to make some stuff the other day. So I need to actually buy another one. But yeah, I mean, I like to buy the like the salt and pepper in bulk. Obviously, I go through pepper a lot faster than salt. Just I'm not a big salt person in general, but yeah, it's crazy how fast I go through pepper versus salt. So stuff like that. I mean, taco seasoning. I don't necessarily make tacos all that often, or I mean, from home, or at home rather. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely I could probably eat tacos every single day in the apocalypse, as Phil could eat red beans and rice probably.
Right. I almost wonder if you could. sort of reverse engineer that Saskatchewan seasoning so that you could maybe go to whole dry ingredients. So like dry peppercorns, dry, whatever the peppers are that are in there, whole dried peppers, and just get a grinder to crush those up. Because I don't know how long that Saskatchewan stuff lasts, but I know that like the burger seasoning blend that I used to use, it would get like in a hardened mass if you left it all pre-mixed for too long.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, I mean, this year, but honestly, like I look at the humidity and stuff, like what.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, the salt because I have salt and pepper sitting on the back of my stove, and the salt will kind of start sticking together, and I got to shake it and break it up.
Yeah. Once you bust it up, it's fine again. But I was just thinking for the say like the peppercorns and the
you could definitely
crushed peppers in there.
Yeah, you could definitely reverse engineer it, and I mean even make something of your own, depending on what you want to add, because like that's the thing I like about the Saskatchewan rub is it has enough of a kick that I like, but it doesn't like murder me because
right.
a wuss when it comes to anything spicy and like hot, whatever. But yeah, so I mean, you definitely, but that's basically a lot of stuff. And I mean, I like some Italian stuff, so like I'll have some Italian seasoning sitting around, garlic salt, garlic. I like garlic salt on eggs is actually something that I've grown fond of.
I'll have to try that.
Yeah, just a little bit because it honestly or not garlic salt, sorry, garlic pepper. Just a little bit, because if you add too much, trust me, I know. If you add too much, the garlic it definitely can be too garlicky. But I do like a little bit of garlic pepper, stuff like that. So no, I mean those are pretty much the staples that I have in my pantry, and then the same thing, kind of pretty much like in the back of my truck is the salt and pepper and the rub and I think a garlic pepper, stuff like that. So
what about booze? And you know, we all like a beer, we all like a whiskey.
Yeah.
Like, do you do any of that home brewing?
No, not yet. I've researched it and I've thought about it, but it's something that I just don't want to put the money into right now. I did have a friend of mine. We did do a home brew years ago, many years ago, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of turn the heat up. Okay, now sit for half an hour and wait. It has to get to this temp. So okay, we'll have a beer, and then okay, let things cool down. Okay, now sit and wait. You know that like so that was, and I would really like to get into. I've been really researching making homemade liquor. So I've been really researching a lot of different the kettles, and I've been researching a lot of the things that I need at home to do it, even on like a small, really small scale. And I mean that's really interesting, but again, I don't have the time, and I don't really have the extra cash right now to get into it. So
what I got into for instead of homebrewing beer was making mead.
Oh yeah,
that's a very set and forget process. So part of what I do is I keep about 5 gallons of honey all the time, because in the winter, me and my wife go through tea like mad, just cold and flu season. She works with young kids, so she brings home everything. Phil, I'm sure your wife does the exact same thing.
Oh, yes.
If the kids have it, I'm going to have it eventually. So throat coat teas, piles of that, because there's nothing worse than just being miserable from a scratchy sore throat. But that honey, dual purpose. Given a couple of weeks to a couple of months, depending on what recipe you're doing, you throw honey and water together. If you got any other kinds of fruit, throw that in. And you can make yourself a very good, depending on the quality of your honey wine. You know, and not to mention the medical uses for honey, as far as like for wound care, and the fact that it doesn't go bad ever. I think at one point they recovered some from Tutankhamun's tomb that was still edible. So, I mean, if you can store it in a desert tomb, you can probably store it in your basement or crawl space. Just, you know, find a local kid or a local guy that's got his own bees that harvest it, and just tell them in the spring, like, hey, I want a 5-gallon bucket this summer. It's going to be expensive, but you'll have it for, unless you're brewing mead, you will have it for a decade or more before you eat your way through it. And when you get halfway done, get another bucket from them. I think last time I bought it, it was like $240 for 5 gallons of honey. That's a lot of honey. I use 5 pounds of it to make a 5-gallon batch of mead. And
I would imagine
5
imagine
pounds
buying
is
it.
not much.
I would also imagine buying it 5 gallons at a time. I would imagine you're getting a cost break someplace because they don't have to do half as much work packaging it up.
I think the first time I did a batch of mead, it was like $130 worth of honey, buying the honey from Jewel. And that was 5 pounds because I was buying the organic honey off the grocery store shelf. So it was surprisingly expensive. And then my mother-in-law put me in contact with this kid over in Elgin that's been making a go at being a bee farmer on his own and having some pretty good success. So I've been able to buy from him lately. In fact, that last 5-gallon bucket I bought before we moved into this house 4 years ago is just about half empty. So I about time to order another 5 gallons from him. And it's a good source of clean food grade buckets too. Once you empty that out, wash it out a little bit, and you're good to go to store whatever else in it you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I go through honey like crazy because I do. I mean, coffee, depending on how many cups of coffee I have, it's a spoon of honey in every single coffee cup now. And even with tea, I started drinking a lot more tea too, and I mix a spoon of honey in it. And yeah, I've noticed some allergies, and I've noticed like a couple things kind of clear up with me just by doing that over the summer. But yeah, it's becoming a habit to where so my girlfriend and we've been looking at other animals to raise, possible like chicken, butcher chickens and all kinds of stuff. And she threw out there the idea of bees. So I've been actually getting into doing some research on raising bees because,
nice.
I mean, I don't know. I have no intentions of selling it, but if I can sustain the honey with bees or whatever. So I don't know. I know there's a lot to it. There's a ton to it.
Well, at the very least too, it gives you a little bit more contact with the natural world, which can be massive for people's mental health. I mean, there's nothing funnier than watching a bunch of chickens go about doing their chicken stuff. I mean, everybody seems to like it when they start doing it. They might not like cleaning out the coop, but they like watching the chickens.
I mean, I've never seen chickens hump before, but I saw them yesterday. So I'm throwing that out there.
There you go. Learning something every day.
There's a rooster, and like it was sitting on top of a hen, and I was like, "What the heck?" And she goes, "You know what that?" I go, she's like, "This is what happens." I was like,
"That's what animals do."
That looks like a salt. Like, holy crap! But no, it's obviously because I've only seen chickens with eggs. I've never really seen roosters before, or with mixed in. So no, it's interesting. So yeah, I mean, prepping for comfort. As far as my biggest purchase would be probably my truck bed, my truck camper, or the tent that I got for my truck. I don't mind tenting it. I don't mind sleeping on the ground. But the idea, and I mean, and the truck, the camper that I got, or the tent that I got on the back of my truck. I mean, it's not like super comfortable, whatever. But I mean, it's the size of a queen size bed, so plenty of room. There is a mattress there is an air mattress that I do want to buy for it. That it actually gives it a little bit more cushion.
Nice.
So I might do that. But I mean, for the most part, I just like it because I like the idea of being up and off the ground. And then I also like the idea of just being in more of a hard shelter than just a tent. This summer, when I went camping with a couple friends of mine, we were up in the Upper Peninsula camping on the side of a lake, and like 5 a.m, a thunderstorm rolled through, and it was blowing hard enough to where my truck was rocking. And I looked out and I saw like their tents and stuff, and their tents, you could see they held up great, but you could definitely see that wind was pushing. And it's one of those things where I felt safe, just because, I mean, it's a hard top. The tent is a hard top. And it's angled, but if anything were to come down, I mean, could it close down on me, maybe. But I mean, that's something terrible that would.
Well, at least you have something more substantial than a tarp in between you.
Yeah. So that's my big prepping for comfort, or camping or whatever. So it was the big purchase for that, and then just like the way I've been trying to set my bed up is I'm trying to make it more comfortable, faster, just more, just easier to set stuff up, easier to cook, stuff like that. So
I will say that there is something to that because, like, we're still tent camping on the ground because with my wife's ankle injury, there is a 0% chance she's going to go up and down a ladder to get in and out of bed at night.
Yeah.
That's not possible. But I mean, it takes us, like, once we back into a camping spot, we're probably half an hour out from having the campsite set up. Between unloading everything, which the soft topper is making that a little easier. And I mean, I guess I could throw that in this conversation. Like, one of the things we did was we put a soft topper on the back of our truck to help out with camping and with hauling gear and everything. Because, the thing about having a Toyota Tacoma is that Toyota thinks that those little cute little rear leaf springs that are nice and comfortable when you're bumping around the suburbs are the perfect thing to put on your truck. But when you put 700 pounds of shite in the back of it, it squats a whole bunch and it rides the bump stops. But I digress. So if you put like a 200-pound fiberglass camper top on the back, or fiberglass shell on the back of your truck, that truck starts to squat very quickly. And a soft topper is basically a convertible top for your truck bed, so it weighs 35 pounds.
Nice.
But it allowed me to, and it's not 100% waterproof. I've talked to guys who have like sealed it down to the bed much better than what I do because I still like to be able to remove mine. But it's waterproof enough that you can put stuff in the bed of the truck, and the worst you're going to get is a little bit of water is going to seep into the corners, and then it will run along the bed, in the low spot between the channels of your bed. So
yeah, but then I mean, all that's doing is just okay. So the water does that. All right. Well, I'm not going to put a duffel bag of clothes, clean clothes, right on the bed. I'll put totes, and then I'll put the clothes, and I'll put whatever fabric I'll put on top of that. Like that, just okay. That's all you got to do. So that's not terrible. But yeah, no, it's making things a little bit easier for yourself as far as like loading, unloading, or whatever. I mean, to me, I mean, that's one reason why I got the tent for the truck was over the years of going to, the years that I've been going to prepper camp and stuff like that. It's like you see like Tommy having his on his Jeep.
Yeah, like watch this, guys. Funk, yeah. I'm ready to go to sleep.
They're like, all right, well, we're gonna keep doing this, and we're finally getting set up. And okay, holy crap, I'm tired, and let's finally sit down. Tommy rolls in, freaking, dang near dark, and he's just like, dude, okay, I'm done. I'm going to bed. And that's kind of like, I mean, so some of it was kind of out of jealousy versus necessity kind of thing. But at the same time, taking that worry out of it, knowing that I can, because like going to prepper camp this year, I'm by myself. I'm driving by myself. So I'm looking at possibly leaving Wednesday, drive halfway, stay at like a KOA or something, and then drive the rest of the way. Like when we were for the Tennessee trip, for the MOF trip, I did that same thing, and I drove for about 8 or I think 10 hours. I think I drove. I pulled in, found a KOA, pulled in. I was like freaking dead tired from driving. It was nice to be able to pull in at dark. I set my I have those DeVos lanterns that I set up. I set those up first thing, and then I popped my tent, and within 5 minutes, like, I mean, it took me longer to like get my sleeping bag unfolded and thrown in there than anything. And so, yeah, so like knowing that I can just do that really quick, like that's nice. Like that made things easier. It just takes a lot off of you. So, I mean, and obviously, packing up and stuff. And the downside is if you ever want to use your vehicle and you're by yourself, you got to pack up and do that. But with, again, Tennessee, every single day I packed my truck up and I drove my truck. And then at night I would do, and so that's the thing. It's like literally 5 minutes unpacking. And once you get it down, it's like maybe 5 or so minutes packing it up and you're ready to go. I mean, as long as you keep everything else somewhat situated, or if you don't want to leave stuff, you got to pack up the whole campsite. But still, it's just just that idea of being able to like just do it really quick versus all right, I got to tear my campsite down kind of thing or whatever. So, but yeah, I mean I would say that's like that was probably my biggest thing for prepping for comfort, and then obviously the small things as far as a better water filter. Than I have the Sawyers, which are nice, but a better water filter. I mean, cooking supplies, like just a nicer stove, things like that that just make it nicer. That it makes it easier. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's something to, I want to say being more organized, being a prep, but I think there's something to like admitting like this is not 100% necessary, but it's going to make my life substantially easier.
mhm.
And, like let's call what it is. When you're camping, yeah, there's a lot of sitting around screwing off going on because that's just what camping's for. But there's also a lot of work involved. I always used to tell my daughter, I'm like, when you're camping, everything takes longer. It takes longer to cook because you got to set everything up. You got to boil water. You got to do whatever. Like everything takes longer. So everything takes more effort. So anything you can install to take effort out of the equation or make things just quicker, simpler, less setup, less tear down, you can make a good justification for that because especially in an emergency situation, anything that saves effort is a lifesaver because
Mhm.
you're already going to be at a deficit in those situations.
If nothing else, just a sleep deficit.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about entertainment?
Uh,
You got a teenage girl, Phil. How
yeah.
you gonna keep her from driving you up a wall?
I am trying to figure that out because when she was like during Hurricane Ida a couple years ago, the day after the hurricane, that little girl walked out the front door and was like, or not the front door. We couldn't walk out the front door. We had a tree in front of the front door. She walked out the back door. It was like, oh, it's really windy. Can I fly my kite? And we were both like, yes, go fly your kite. So she went and got her daggum kite and was flying that damn thing in the front yard. And my wife has a picture of her flying a kite in front of this huge tree that's down in our yard. So she was pretty easy. But, at this point, like a substantial portion of her life revolves around her cell phone and Netflix and YouTube, and that
Okay.
would get troublesome in a very quick hurry. Fortunately,
How,
fortunately,
how long
huh,
will your Jackery power your home Wi-Fi if the network was still up?
uh, honestly, I wouldn't even attempt to power the home Wi-Fi.
Hmm.
The three of us are on an unlimited cellular plan,
Oh, okay. So you just need to
so
recharge cell phones then, really?
yeah, and and because of all the time we spent camping, I mean, we've got a Jackery 1000 back there on the shelf. We've got a couple of portable power banks that we use to charge stuff. We've got the Jackery has solar options. I mean, I don't think it'd be. I know that during Hurricane Ida, the generator pretty well was focused on running the window unit and the fridge and the chest freezer, and we had a little bit of surplus power even after that. So we were doing things like unhook from one thing, hook up to like the washer and dryer, and wash clothes and stuff. But that's how we got through a lot of that. And the Jackery, I mean, honestly, at the end of I think by the second day or the third day, once we got the generator running, we stopped putting the Jackery and the solar panels out in the front yard. We just plugged it into the generator and we used it as the home power bank to
Sure.
basically be like a really big USB charger. And that's what, because we only had the three of us, but some of my wife's family came into town to help us deal with the problem. So temporarily, we had two more adults and three more teenagers in the house. There was a lot of cell phones to charge. But yeah, I mean, entertainment is something like we've got like a couple decks of cards, we've got some board games and stuff like that. We've got things we could do, but entertainment for a long-term period of time would become problematic eventually.
What about
You
board
know,
games?
well, yeah, we've got board games, we've got decks of cards and stuff like that. This family gets very vicious around a game of Uno. Like
I can bet.
fights have broken out over it.
Maybe you should look into some of the tabletop games. I'm a big fan of D&D, Shadow Dark, Call of Cthulhu, stuff like that. Storytelling games. You know, you get the basic rules. You got some character sheets. Heck, you can put them in a sleeve and use wet erase or dry erase markers on them. Then they're infinitely reusable. Well, until the plastic cracks, but they're reusable for quite a long time. I mean, heck, a notebook paper, you can write down the important stuff about it, and you can play a near endless series of games, at least well until you're out of the situation or you don't have the time to play anymore.
D&D was something that we weren't into during IDA, but we have gotten into. I have a
There you
level 2
go.
I have a level 2 warrior, and my daughter, I think, has a druid she's playing with.
Nice. See, that's perfect because that's a thing you do now. That's a normal part of your daily life that you can continue with no external input other than time.
Mm-hmm. What about the two of y'all? What do y'all do for entertainment that you could continue to do if something popped off?
Well, for me, right behind me. So that little lathe there will actually is capable of being powered by my generator. So if playing around with that, working on little projects on that, board games, D&D, obviously, big fan of that, and other tabletop role-playing games. Our network is going to be soon on a battery backup, so that won't kick off necessarily when the power goes off right away, but it is hooked up to the generator system, so the generator will be able to repower that power bank and therefore keep our Ethernet up because we don't have cable TV. We do all that stuff off of streaming.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've got a pretty extensive book library between my wife and I. We both are big readers, as well as a fairly extensive DVD collection from back when you used to buy a bunch of those. So,
oh, you mean physical media? How
yeah,
beautifully
physical
antiquated.
media. And then actually, this computer next to me that I just put together to podcast down here is also going to be a home media server PC for us. So there's going to be, given all the spare hard drives, I have about 12 terabytes of digitally stored media on there. So we'll be able to stream anywhere in the house from this computer. Well, I think currently right now I've got 2.5 years worth of television shows continuously played, stored on it.
What about you, Andrew? What are you going to do for fun?
Harass the neighbors.
There you go.
No, honestly, like, I mean, I might have a deck of cards somewhere. I think I have conflicted somewhere. Other than that, I don't do board games. I'm boring. My attention span with board games is very minimal. I'm the guy that will flip over Monopoly because after like 15 minutes because I'm just like, this is bullshit. Yeah, same thing with D&D and all that stuff. My attention span, I can't do it. But I think back in college we had a D&D group, and I think we met twice, and then I was like, I'm over it.
It's not for everybody.
But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, that's gonna be the downfall where I'm gonna have to figure out something. Being in the city, it might be watching the chaos and the druggies and stuff because that's always fun to do as of now. See if you can't spot a drug deal. That's a fun game. Back when I first moved to Grand Rapids, actually before I moved to Grand Rapids, I came to visit my one uncle, and him and I drove down Division, and we said spot the hooker. We would play. So basically that and the drug deals, which is always interesting to see. But yeah, no, I mean, I guess if crap hit the fan, it would be, it'd be nice to be out in the country, grab an axe and go cut a tree down and mess around with that or something. I don't know. But
so your plan's still to bust out of there then, right?
Oh yeah, I'm not staying where I'm at.
So it makes sense that your entertainment package would be lighter. I mean,
yeah.
Phil and I were more of staying where we are. So we need a heavier entertainment package because you're going to be traveling on the road. So you're not going to have time. You're not going to have downtime except for inclement weather, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I might if something were, weather related. I'm not bugging out because weather related.
Right. No, I mean like 0 travel days. If you're familiar with that term from backpacking.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
foot sore, out of food, whatever. You gotta just stop sometimes.
Yeah, but if some, I mean, yeah, but anything other than that, like, crap hits the fan or whatever, no, I'm not staying here. This town there's too many druggies. The meth is out of control here. And neighbors, especially, like I've been picking out the neighbors that are drugs. So it's definitely going to be interesting. But yeah, so it is what it is. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah.
Well, that's the reality of life for a lot of people, though, I think, Andrew. Like, you can't pick your neighbors sometimes. Sometimes you have to pick the house that you can afford.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's definitely what this was. This one was. Obviously, it's not my forever home, but but no, I mean, yeah, for entertainment, I mean, I think I have a deck of cards and some other stuff, and I mean, I'm sure I'll find something else to do. I mean, as of the entertainment right now is trying to get my Scorpion set up for
There you go.
night vision use, and then basically, yeah, cleaning. I know last time I lost power, it was basically go through and just kind of clean some guns, and that's about it. So
We need to do a night vision episode.
You two do. And I need to budget for night vision.
and Nick will show up with a pad of paper and take notes.
Oh, I replayed the previous night vision episode about 5 times. I have a stack of notes.
I know a guy that can get you hooked up. So.
Oh yeah, well yeah. Right now we're in recovery mode from our most recent homeownership joys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Emergency funds are there for a reason, but you must replenish them after use.
They are for emergency use.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Duncan will take care of you. He just wants to, commit felonious assault on your savings account. That's all.
Yeah, that's just acceptable. That's everyone
just
nowadays.
Just put your savings account in a nice little headlock and punch it in the face 7 or 8 times, and it'll be all right.
Actually, I did reach out to them, and I was talking to them back and forth about it, and it seemed to me that for my use case, there's no 100% necessity to go with Gen 3 or newer night vision. Due to where I am and the fact that I'm going to be using positive illumination on my weapons platform, there's not really a great reason to go from 2 to 3 other than completely lights out, no active illumination performance, realistically speaking.
Well, I feel
the only alternative I would give you to that is, yes, you could probably get away with Gen 2 in that scenario, but the resale for Gen 3 will always be stronger.
So yeah, absolutely.
And I
now,
don't know,
but that's the thing is, I'm not worried about resale because there's 2 adults in the house. If I do upgrade from Gen 3 or Gen 2 to Gen 3 or Gen 2 to Gen 4, a spare pair that is mounted on my spare helmet that my wife could wear if need be, it's not a downside to me.
No, I hear you. That's just the only thing I ever point out when somebody...
Yeah, for sure.
Because Gen 2 is usable. But it's the only thing I ever point out to somebody is, I'm like, if I try to unload my PVS 14 that Andrew sold me, and by Andrew's own admission, it's a really, really, really high spec tube, I may not get back every dollar I paid for it, but I will get substantial money back for it.
Oh, for
not
sure.
a problem.
You absolutely will. I mean,
someone's going to look through that tube and they're going to pay for it. But the minute you start talking about Gen 2, the market just shrinks. Fewer people are going to want to buy it, and you're going to get substantially less for it.
Right.
But then again, that's why some people buy Toyotas, because they hold their value for, until 300,000 miles. And some people buy other things because they're like, I don't care what it costs. I don't care what I can get if I resell, because I'm not going to.
Right. It's like my pickup. When the day I go to sell that pickup, there will be 2 people interested. A 16-year-old with no money and the scrapyard. Yeah, that's going to be the only 2 that want that thing. But I envision night vision the same way. Like if I'm buying it, it's going to be, I'm going to run it until it either dies or I now need to upgrade because my skill set requires that upgraded tool.
Oh, write that one down for the night vision episode.
There you go.
I mean, we could do that in 4 days. I don't want to say what day it's going to be because the people listening to this, and we'll need to make a decision about whether or not we send this out for next Friday or for this Friday or this out for next Friday when Nick's out of town,
We
which
can
is
do
why
that.
we're pre-recording this. We'll
Either
figure
way,
it out.
whatever works easier. I mean, if you get a busy day and you can't get all the editing done on the next one where you record, then send this one out. I mean,
Yeah,
We can
that
talk
might
about that.
be.
or
Yeah,
we
we'll talk
just
about that offline.
yeah, exactly. There's no worries.
All right. Well, I thought this was a worthwhile conversation because, like I said, like a lot of people, especially people that first start out in preparedness, like they're laser focused on bare minimums or laser focused on like beans and rice, and there's a place for that. But kind of like Nick and I were talking about last week, where we said, once you get to a certain point, you broaden your horizons out. You start looking at, I don't just need the bare minimums. I can flirt with night vision, or I can start playing with this, or I can get into this. And I feel like prepping for comfort is just one of those things that for a certain segment of us kind of falls by the wayside because we're just so used to austere environments. We don't count them as austere anymore. But for a lot of us, we have girlfriends and wives and kids, and none of them seem to tolerate, eating bugs and sleeping in the dirt the way some of us do. So you call it prepping for comfort. I call it keeping my spouse from slitting my throat in my sleep.
Yeah, that's just a security prep.
Look, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna give you boys out there a pro gamer tip. The only person on earth you should be scared of is the person you sleep next to. Because everybody else on earth has to get through locked doors, past security systems, past dogs, past all that stuff to get to you. And all your spouse or girlfriend has to do is wake up in a bad mood. And she's right there. And I tell that to everybody all the time. Like, my wife is the only person on earth I'm scared of, because if she decides to end me, I'll wake up staring at St. Peter and won't know how I got there.
Yeah.
But, huh?
Said write that down.
Yep, write it down. That is life advice.
Yeah,
Well, let's go ahead and punt this one out the door. Matter of Fact's podcast going out the door. Don't discount comfort, because it will be comforting when all hell has broken loose. Talk to you on another week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you.